And welcome to another episode of All Rell Good on the Crawford Podcasting Network with former two-time Big Ten champion, my good friend Richard Rellford out of Riviera Beach, Florida, standout basketball player when the Michigan basketball team was pretty doggone good, which they're not right now currently, but we'll talk about that shortly. But, Rich, we're all maize and blue. We're both fellow Michigan alumni. You're a former Michigan extraordinary athlete, I might add. I want your perspective. You have a good friend, and his name is Jim Harbaugh, and you correspond with him. And so it's great to start out our segment here asking your reaction. Jim Harbaugh, 9 seasons, 3 Big Ten titles, 3 CFP appearances, won a Rose Bowl victory, a national championship. Let's just give me in a nutshell, Rich. What's your legacy overview of Jim Harbaugh with his 9 years at Michigan?
I think he's the greatest football coach in Michigan's history, with the exception of Bo Schembechler.
Okay, so
Bo's
he's,
going to
so he's
always
second.
be
Okay, so let
right.
me stop you there. He's second behind Bo, or he's ahead
Yes,
of Bo?
he's
Okay,
second behind Bo because Bo created the legacy.
okay, okay.
Without Bo, we have no legacy. And I love Harbaugh, and his brother said something on ESPN that they quoted. Jim Harbaugh is a great team builder.
No,
Jimmy
no doubt,
builds great teams.
he
And
does.
I feel like the San Diego job is the perfect job for him. And we also know that he likes teams with good quarterbacks.
Yeah,
And Justin Herbert, I think, is going to be amazing because I told you earlier, he's my fantasy league quarterback a year ago. And so I think it's a perfect scenario for Jimmy.
well, Justin Herbert's your fantasy football quarterback. So my God, how can you argue with that, right? That's why you're. That's why you're happy. It's all about you, Rich.
Yes, yes, it
He knows he's your
is.
fantasy quarterback, so you're going to be good with
Yes. Listen, I text him after uh, he accepted the job in San Diego, and I
Oh,
told him this is
LA.
the
Now
perfect place.
you're doing like me. You talk about the San Diego Chargers. Everybody talks about San Diego. It's the Los Angeles Chargers now.
Right, it's the Los Angeles Chargers, right? Because they have a new stadium, right? SoFi.
Yeah, yeah, a SoFi Stadium, which is an incredible stadium for
Yes,
people that I know. Quite a few people that have gone there. It's overwhelming. So he's he and his wife Sarah. Sarah's from Southern California. This
yes.
is perfect. This is absolutely. I just think this is a good fit for all purposes, and maybe we'll talk about that shortly. Anyway, so
Yeah, you know what?
you feel good. You weren't bummed out that, and with that in mind, how good do you think? Sherrone Moore is going to be the next head football coach at Michigan. That I'm being Captain Obvious when I say that. So, how do you think he's going to do it, especially if he can retain the bulk of that staff, which is extraordinary?
I think Sharon is going to be amazing,
Yeah,
and Sharon deserves the job
he does.
because I tell everybody who's been talking about it, Sharon beat Ohio State without Jimmy.
Yeah, yeah.
So he already a leg up for me. He's already a leg up, And so I just wish that everybody backs Sharon because we know how big Michigan is on Michigan men. We know
Yeah,
how that goes. We know that Sharon didn't go to school there, but sometimes you got to look outside the box,
yeah,
and
yeah,
Sharon is outside the box.
yeah. Well, Sharon has when Ed Warner was the offensive line coach, and the offensive line at Michigan was up to 20. That takes it to 2020 was not physical at all, right? So
Right.
so part of Wardman, they restructured Jim's contract, and part of the agreement was he changes up some of his coaching staff. He brought in Sherrone Moore in there, former Oklahoma Sooner player. He was a good player, and man, he's a great recruiter. Uh, I always gauge, in my access to the media, Rich, I get to talk to players, and when you get position group guys come in there like a Zach Zinner, talk about their coach, like Sherrone, it's just like you can tell. Kids. 18 to 23-year-old kids, you can see through them. You can see the truth come out of them when, they're pretty candid about things. And
Mhm.
that, that coaching staff was outstanding. And Sharon Moore was a great part of that coaching staff. If he can retain Steve Flinksdale and Mike Hart and, Jesse Minter probably will go. But I mean, just enough of that staff to keep that culture, because as you said, Jim has created this great culture on that team that was so evident this year. And
Yes.
that's critical, if you're going to be a championship team, as I'm sure you agree.
Oh, I totally agree. I think Jimmy changed the culture at the
Yeah.
University of Michigan.
Yeah.
And the way he coached and the way those kids loved him and his coaches loved him, I think, Tom, everybody in the country is happy for Harbaugh.
Yeah.
We look forward to Sharon's tenure. I think he'll be great, like you said, if he can, keep some of those guys, Mike Hart. But a guy said to me last night, and I got to be honest, he was an Ohio State guy. He said, Rich, wouldn't it be great if he could bring Charles Woodson in for the defensive backs? And I said to him, you know how hard it's going to be to get Charles out of the TV booth doing these games. Now, if you did something like that, now that would be amazing
Yeah.
because you'll have one of the best defensive back coaches in the country.
Yeah. No, I understand that. I mean, this is what really, that's an interesting statement that you heard from your friend, Buckeye friend. And I know you're inundated with Buckeye friends. Well, you got
Yeah,
Michigan people down there in Toledo area where you
sure,
live. But,
sure.
it's like, still, Charles Woodson was a great player, great commentator, but does that necessarily parlay into being a great coach? Because in college football right now, the responsibilities of being a position coach, my God, you got recruiting, you got just life issues you got to deal with young people. You got a room that you're responsible, 15 or 20 kids that you meet with every day. Man, he's got a good gig in sports broadcasting. He
Yes.
seems like he's having a hell of a lot of good time every time I see
I,
him. Who's going to give up that? Who's got it better than Charles Woodson, right?
exactly. That's what I told the guy at the Buckeye. I said, Charles has a pretty cushy job. And you just
Yeah.
put it into perspective. Who wants to
Yes.
go out and do all that recruiting and sitting in there with all these players? Those coaching jobs at these schools are for guys who are ready to settle down, who has
Yeah.
families and they're settling down. Even though my young guy, he's a young guy,
Yeah.
Shamor, he's a young guy. And
Yeah.
so Charles Woodson is what we call wishful thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens. Klink is a tremendous secondary coach.
Yes.
And keep him, and what you pay, you got to pay, you get what you pay for. You're going to have to pay these assistants, in my opinion. And I think Michigan is going to do that. And so, that's where we lie right there on Michigan football. And so onward we go. And let's talk, about basketball.
Let's do it.
that's you have ownership as a former player as much as anybody.
Mhm.
You're tied in. You're Mr. Positive. You're a much more positive person than I am. I'm not in your same time zone. The disparity between your positivity and my positivity is about the difference between your vertical jump and my vertical jump. It's about the same proportion. Okay. So
Okay, I'll go for that, Tom.
I even consider myself a good positive person, but this thing on Tuesday night, the Purdue game, it was the worst Michigan loss since our friend
Yes.
Chris Young was on that 2002 team, which is Tommy Amaker's first year, and they got beat by like 36 points. They got beat by 32. And okay, let's just cut to the chase. What's wrong with this team? And what would you do to fix this team?
I'm gonna be honest. They don't play hard.
Okay,
They
that's
don't play
interesting.
strong.
It's interesting you say that because that's kind of like what Nick Stauskas said, the former Wolverine, said in his on an Instagram post. I can't recall the wording of it, but it was similar to what you're saying, that they're disrespecting by not playing hard, something along those lines.
Well, not only that, I think they don't play to represent Michigan the way they should play.
Yeah.
Now, Gosker said they have to, that M has to mean something. This
Yeah.
M on your chest means something.
Hmm.
We play hard. We're going to go out and we're going to fight to the end. Last
Right.
night, I saw Edie. Edie didn't play so great. You know, he only
No.
had 16 points.
He had an off game.
Right. And you guys, and I'm going to tell you, Tom, and I don't usually call out players,
Go ahead.
but Reed Jr.,
Yeah.
he's not playing.
Yeah.
I don't know what his problem is,
Yeah.
but you have to play. Last night, my transfer guys, one of them played great. The other two was just okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
We have to play better, man. We have to
Yeah.
have some pride
Well, Doug
in
McDaniel
Michigan.
didn't play. I mean, the only
Right.
guy who actually has handles on the team. I mean, who can consistently handle the basketball significantly more than anybody else. And now he's got, and this is his fault. He didn't go to study. He's got academic issues. Meanwhile, my
Right.
guy, when you got study table, when it's spoon, I mean, come on. I mean, you know what that's like. I mean, how do you become academically ineligible when Michigan's infrastructure from an academic standpoint, you have advisors? I mean, weren't there warning flags? I mean, doesn't that surprise you? Because you don't hear that anymore, academic issues. So
What surprises me is that he can play at home and not on the road.
that's never been explained.
I've never in my life heard of that. Once you're ineligible, you're ineligible. You know what I mean? You don't play until your grades get better. That's why I never understood you can play at home. So tell me what's the incentive for him to still go to class when he can play at home?
Yeah, I know. He doesn't have to travel, man. He could just hang out, watch Wolverine.
Right.
Who doesn't want to go to these road games? Mackey Arena wasn't a lot of fun to go there and get berated.
No,
Anyway, so
no. I played in Mackey, and listen,
that's loud.
it's loud in there. I think I might have lost once or twice in there. We in the 4 years that I played at Michigan.
Yeah.
We lost to Mackey. But
yeah.
I don't get that part, man. I'm still trying to ask people, how can he only play at home? He should not be able to play at all. At all. He shouldn't be able to play. Until his grades are better.
I want to ask you, because I love to parallel your situation, albeit 40 years ago, young fella. Okay. 82, 83. Actually, your freshman year was now 41 years ago. Is that right? 41 years ago was your freshman year?
Yes, long time.
Wow. So no wonder you can only grab the rim now as opposed to do hand. Okay. So my question is, okay, so you come in there, and the year prior that you came in here, Michigan had a 7-20 season, if I recall. I was in Texas at the time, and they had one guy Thad Garner, who could dunk, and the only people that came to Michigan games, you want to see Thad Garner in a breakaway dunk. That was about the only reason they came, to the game. I mean, Frieder had a bad year. I mean, McCormick got hurt. In fact, we got to bring Tim McCormick on here and talk about that. But
okay.
Yeah. So anyway, so they're coming off that. So your freshman year, we bring the first Fab Five in. Okay. Which you were a part of, and a lot of expectations, but I think there were realistic expectations But so you went from 7-20, and then your freshman year you were 15-13 overall, but 6-12 in the Big Ten. You're in ninth place. You finished in ninth. There were only 10 teams back there, Rich. So
right.
not all that great. Okay.
Right. No, it wasn't all that great. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, what was that season like? I mean, how did you get through the tough times?
I think because we were so young, all we kept saying was, we're going to get better. We're going to get better. We are the freshmen. We just wanted to play every night that we could play. But we also knew that we would grow because none of us had played in Big Ten competition except for Thad and all those guys.
Yeah.
And I told you before, the Big Ten is not easy. And when you come in, me and Butch handled it very well, the physicalness of it. Tarpley didn't play so much. McCormick handled it very well. And our guards were trying to adjust because we had Dan Petakutas and we had Eric Turner for a little while.
Yeah.
And so, listen, it's not easy, man. I watch these kids today, and I'm hoping that somebody realizes the stuff you have to do to play at the University of Michigan.
Right.
It's listen, that M, this block M, man, my blood is maize and blue.
No, I know you are. Yeah, that comes through. Although I've known you, that absolutely. Well, you played like that, and so you went 15-13, and then
Mhm.
every year, your sophomore year, you got a little bit
Got better?
better. You missed the tournament by an eyelash, but you go to the NIT and you beat Notre Dame and you win the NIT, which
Yes.
propelled in New York City. You blew out Notre Dame, and and that's when the NIT was a more legitimate thing.
You're right. It meant something.
Fewer teams in the Big Ten.
Right.
I mean, the NCAA tournament, and the Big Ten wouldn't get that many in the NCAA. But you went there and you won that thing, and then all of a sudden that set the tone for back-to-back Big Ten titles, and so it was a building block year. What was the biggest difference between in that progression between your between the NIT and then getting to the NCAA, getting over the hump?
That's the summer we all stayed in Ann Arbor. We started getting more of a team together,
Okay.
meaning we played all summer together. We played in the Sandy Sanders Summer League, some
Yeah,
of
I
us.
remember that. Yeah.
And I think what that did was it started bringing us close together. And then we start saying, I'm not playing for me. I'm playing for that guy. That
Yeah.
guy's playing for the next guy. That
Yeah.
guy playing for the next guy. We're gonna pick everybody up. And I think once these guys, you got transfers and from the portal who's only been here a year, and they
Yeah.
don't have any of that kind of camaraderie that we had. You need that camaraderie, and you gotta. I wish and hope that they stay this summer and play
Well,
together.
it's like, but it's hard to get excited about. Well, first of all, Juwan Howard. I mean that I know you and Sean are both in agreement that
Mhm.
Sean should get or Juwan should get another year and just make an adjustment on getting a assistant coach with better recruiting prowess. Okay, I think you both were consistent with that. But what if Michigan? I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not trying to be Tom Downer here or whatever. They might not win another game, and the reason I say that, I mean, their best chance is Iowa because they beat Iowa. They got them at home.
Right.
When you look at their schedule, and they got, when you look at their schedule, I think they might win 2 games max. That would be
Mhm.
5-15, 9-23 overall. I mean, what do you tell Juwan if you're Ward Manuel? I mean, you got to get your act together. You got one more year. I mean, what do you do? I mean, I know he loves Michigan. He's a Fab Fiver, but you got to do what's best for the program, don't you?
They will do what's best for the program. Just like as much as we love Harbaugh, they were not willing to give him immunity
Yeah,
from
yeah,
anything.
yeah,
Well, they're going to have to do the same. They're going to sit Jawan down. Uh, if you give him another year, then he gets to get these transfers, gets a year under their belt, and he can coach them, and you go from there. That's the reason I say they should give him another year
yeah,
because he's playing with guys who never played together. These kids
yeah,
never played together, and so once you give him another year, listen, it's never going to be easy because I also think that Jawan himself didn't get a chance to go out and recruit. And as a recruit, big time recruits, I want the head coach coming to my house.
yeah,
When I got ready to sign a letter of intent, Bill Frieda and Mike Boyd was sitting in my living room. That's how it has to be.
yeah,
McDonald's All Americans ain't just going to your school because your assistant coach is good.
yeah. No.
So he has to be able to put some time in, is what I think.
Well, I realize he had the heart situation, and maybe he'll just maybe Juwan will say at the end of the year, you know what? Maybe I'm better fit for the NBA. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm telling you what. This is a bad basketball team. I mean, I tell you the most glaring thing, Rich, that I see, and
Mhm.
I don't know why I did this because I'm just a glutton for punishment. But I taped the Purdue game because I knew it was going to end up bad, and so I wanted to go through it on Wednesday morning and actually see how bad it, break down what's bad. And they are the weakest fundamentals in terms of defending and boxing out I can ever recall a Michigan team or any team. They don't box out. They don't. I mean, the hustle plays, and sometimes they're there, sometimes they're not. I mean, I'm not even talking about the lack of continuity or purpose offensively, where there's a strategy what they're trying to accomplish. It seems like AAU ball, ISO one-on-one, and if Doug is there, let Doug do it and let anybody else do it. I mean, you got Kamwa backing guys down like we're down there at the Hoover Street IM building, in a pickup.
Right.
I mean,
Right. I agree.
that's my takeaway. But the lack of, I mean, that Purdue went on that run and it was brutal because Michigan
Yes,
didn't
it
show
was.
any sense of urgency or care factor in that at all. And that the optics looked bad.
When Purdue went on that run, I'm gonna tell you, man, my heart was breaking
Well, I know. I mean, this is
because
Michigan, for God's sakes, is Brady Hoke.
I had a sense of nobody cared. That's
Yeah,
what sense it gave me.
exactly. That's what Nick Stauskas grabbed from him because you're not the only former Michigan player who follows this program. I mean, that you all there's a lot of you out there looking
Right, it's a lot of us.
what's going on here. And anyway, so we'll see what next week brings. They got Iowa at home, and then God, I don't know. I mean, I knew they have Michigan State a week from, or next weekend, and going up there. That's going to be hard. I'm coming up here to my house, actually, in East Lansing. But
I'll be there.
oh, you're going to go. You're going to be at the one in Ann Arbor in February.
Right, I've been one in February. Yes,
That's February.
but
Yeah.
yes.
We'll have time. We'll have fun together in the buyer suite.
Oh, we're gonna have a ball.
Yeah. When in doubt, we'll just break down the football team and go through the depth chart and just talk. Okay.
I might think we might have to, Tom. I did play a little football.
Yeah, I know you could have played. Bo wanted you to play. People don't realize.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
So anyway, Rich, great job on all Rell Good, and we'll talk to you next week and hope for better days for Michigan basketball.
I appreciate you, Tom. Thank you, man. You know I love doing this show.
Yeah, I do too. Go Blue.